Hello, everybody. Welcome to Visual Communication and Media. It's a pleasure to see each and every one of you. Hope everybody got a hold of my lecture and found the announcements and through everything. So keep in mind, everything's located in the announcements. If you have any questions, just please let me know. Send an email. I'd be happy to guide you there. Also, just to let everybody know, do keep in mind you do have a couple assignments that are due to the end of this week. You do have your live lecture assignment. Please make sure that's turned in by the end of the night, Sunday night, because that's pass or fail. It's tied to your attendance, so those have to be turned in no matter what. Also, keep in mind that your written assignments are due by the end of the night Sunday, and both your discussion posts this week, both the reply post and the initial post are due by the end of the night today. So just keep that in mind. Also, next week, the discussions will change a little bit. Their initial post should be due on Tuesday by the end of the night, and then your reply post should be on Saturday as well. Lectures will also be moved to Monday. So now that the first week's over, we go back to our normal schedule on Monday. Keep an eye out for the announcements. They'll have your lecture links in there and also the specific times, and it's also tied to the calendars as well. Should be 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. So that should help out. Other than that, let's get into it. And let's really talk about the fourth part of sensory responses and how it's going to really help you out in understanding visuals that help trigger sensory elements. And those are lines, and how lines are used in more ways than one. Now, lines themselves are one of the basic elements of visual communication. They direct the flow of content, they divide space, and they provide emphasis on specific areas, so they guide people to specific places, which is pretty cool. Now, you have to keep in mind that each type of line, depending on how the weight is of the line, the shape, the curvature, how it's used, if it's like broken up or anything, could represent different moods or different response types based upon it. A lot of times when you see like dotted lines that are tied to everything, they're used kind of more like an example, or they're not fully integrated into the idea. Diagonal lines tend to like direct you to specific areas. Bold lines are massive for really in your face and trying to get your attention in a lot of aspects. So it just depends how those lines are used in more ways than one. So I'm going to bring 6 examples to show you how some lines really work and how they're going to tie to it. Now, straight lines and consistent lines always give the impression of strictness and rigidity. A lot of groups and companies tend to use these lines a lot of times to showcase consistency and reliability, and to show that they're very organized. We tend to see very consistent line work in a lot of government facilities, any type of organization that deals with some type of regulation or some type of specific business that means to be professional in a lot of ways. Consistency matters, and if everything's consistent and feels organized and laid out properly, like straight lines tend to be, then the customer or whatever the group that is trying to use them is going to trust them no matter what. Now, curved lines also show a type of trust, but in more of a playfulness and graceful style of way. These lines are a lot more flexible, so they change directions, create the flow. They're a lot more fun in how they're usable. So groups and companies tend to use these to show security, not from like a trust perspective of consistency, but from a trust perspective that anything can kind of go. They can be free flowing. It's fun. They're not as tight cornered or really just play within a set of rules. And it brings viewers at ease knowing that sometimes just that flexibility really helps out in a lot of aspects. Now, diagonal lines are awesome. They're pleasant and stimulating to the eye. They help direct the viewer's lines of movement. But you got to be careful when using diagonal lines because they can cause tension and confusion if they're really compacted together, much like this image over here to the right that I'm showing right now. If you really look into it, it feels like the lines are kind of blending into each other a little bit if you look hard because there's so many diagonal lines packed in there. So you got to be careful how you use diagonal lines. So use them sparingly, but use them to really guide and make viewers move to a certain direction. That's what it matters. Now, thick dark lines or gigantic bold lines are meant for confidence and strength. They're really bold for the fact that it's just highlighting a specific element that should pop out compared to everything else. They're meant for groups to appear successful in more ways than one. So when you see these type of lines out there, they're meant to really just highlight specific elements, and that's what's really awesome about it. And really what's confident is like, hey, we're this company, but we're showing this off, and it's right there. And usually when they're like highlighting something, they really have a lot of trust in what's going on. Now, thin light lines or group lines, which is the next element I'm trying to do, is meant for delicacy and gentleness. They're meant for organized but not an overbearing look, and companies use these to showcase beauty without intimidation. And they're meant for exploration in a lot. Well, I'm sorry. So when you're using thin, light lines, they can be consistent, they can be delicate, they can be flexible, but if they're thin, they're meant to showcase beauty and also attractiveness in a lot of ways. So that's why we tend to see these a lot in very types of room and design companies, clothing companies. There's a lot that kind of goes in with this when it comes to some type of attractive aspect. So thin lines are really represented there a lot. Then you have group lines, which I kind of went into a little bit earlier, but I made that mistake. These are meant for exploration. They're meant to showcase data and really different types of numbers to prove theories in more ways than one. So companies use these to showcase research or numbers to back them up a lot of times. It's like the dentist commercial every time where we see, hey, 9 out of 10 dentists recommend this. We know every dentist commercial uses this. This is kind of like their go-to marketing scheme for this, because if like, well, we'll show that we have the number of dentists to prove this theory, but it's always 9 out of 10 for some reason. But just having that number on there just still kind of solidifies the fact a lot of times. But if we tend to see more numbers and facts that base off in some of their videos or some of their imagery, we tend to showcase like, okay, so these guys they know what they're talking about. So that's something to keep in mind. Other than that, that's all I got. So this should help you out with your discussion posts and also with your, trying to have a brain pause here. Also with your written assignment this week, do keep in mind if you have any questions about it, just let me know. I'll be checking in tonight and tomorrow night just to see how everything's going on. I do have hockey tomorrow night, so I might be in the afternoon when I check, and if I come back, it'll be probably a little bit later. Other than that, that's all I got. So be safe, have fun, enjoy. Hope everybody has a great weekend. Hope to see everybody for lecture on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. I'll see y'all then. Take it easy. Bye-bye.